Start here in Romans chapter 12, in one of the Bible's more interesting passages. In fact, it is a passage that has a bit of an oxymoron in the verse, and you'll see it pretty easily when you read it. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice. I consider a living sacrifice an oxymoron. Sort of like jumbo shrimp. Or anarchy rules. That one's a little deeper. You have to go home and think about that one. A living sacrifice doesn't make a lot of sense because by its very definition, a sacrifice, by biblical standards, we're in the Bible. If we were in some other context, maybe not an oxymoron. In biblical context, a sacrifice is going to do what? It's going to die, okay? A living sacrifice seems like an impossibility. It's jumbo shrimp. Yet Paul uses this as the basis for one of the more impressive transitions into repentance. Be not conformed to this world, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's where this will lead you. So that you don't put the mask of the world on. That's what that word is in the Greek. You don't be one thing, grab a mask of the world, put it on so that you fit in to society. He said, don't be conformed to the world, but be transformed, metamorphosed, which is the Greek word for metamorphosis, to transform into what you already really are. We always use caterpillar to butterfly, and that's where we get that idea, that you literally become on the outside what you already are on the inside. And the other option is to stick a mask on so you can be like everybody else wants you to be. Now, unfortunately, that's happening in the church as much as it's happening in the world. People are coming into church on Sunday realizing they have not met the church's standard of holiness, so they fake it for 2 hours on Sunday morning so that they are accepted by the leadership, by their church members, by their friends. They put on a mask, they put on airs so that they can be, and Paul said, don't bother. Your transformation is going to come by changing your mind, renewing your mind so that you start to see yourself the way God sees you. So you start to think of yourself the way God thinks of you. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time because anybody in the world can stick a mask on. The world can be one big masquerade party where everybody puts on what they wish they were instead of what they really are. And how many of you know the system of the world is designed for people to learn how to put on what they wish they were instead of what they really are? In fact, the world has bought into this idea of fake it till you make it. Put that mask on until you live up to that mask. And that is so the system of the world that I think it makes God gag. Because God has already put the seeds of change inside of your heart. He doesn't want you to change the outside so that your inside will match up. He wants you to recognize your inner change so that your outer man will catch up to your inner change. Okay? So it's not the other way around. Part of getting us there is that living sacrifice bit, which has so confused scholars for so long. What did Paul really mean when he said, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy? And you can probably see why I want this verse, because the next phrase, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And the word reasonable is the Greek word logikos. It's the closest we get to the English word logic, which is bizarre because logic does not line up with God. Logic is man's way of figuring things out. God doesn't work in the realm of logic. And yet Paul uses the Greek word logikos, which is logic or reason. So Paul is really saying it makes logical sense that you would give your body over as a living sacrifice. And yet it really is illogical that you could give your body as a living sacrifice if you think in worldly terms. I want you to stop thinking in worldly terms today, and I want you to think in spiritual terms. I want you to think like a Bible reader. And a Bible reader knows that all the way back through the Word of God, sacrifice was not just about slitting the throat of a lamb and offering its body on an altar. Sacrifice was about giving of oneself, even though they knew that the giving of oneself was going to mark a change. Something in you was going to die. So that from that day forward, you moved on as a whole different person. A classic example is Abraham, who is walking his son Isaac up a mountain. God spoke to Abraham the night before and said, I want you to offer your son, your only son, as a sacrifice. And yet, that's Abraham's old way of doing things. Abraham come from the land of Ur of the Chaldees, and they had human sacrifice. You got to think, Abraham's walking little Isaac out thinking, we're going backwards. We're going backwards into the old way. And as he's walking little Isaac up the mountain, Isaac says, Dad, you know the story. That is such beautiful imagery. Isaac says, Dad, we've got the wood, we've got the knife, we've got the fire. The kid's check-marking everything off as they go up the mountain. We've got the wood, we've got the knife, we've got the fire. But we don't have the sacrifice. And Abraham, we would think, would say, you're it. But then maybe, and then we know that he doesn't, and we go, well, maybe he doesn't because he's scared Isaac will turn around and run. What kid wouldn't? But rather, Abraham says something fascinating, which gives me insight. You link it to the book of Hebrews. It gives me insight into how Abraham was thinking. Abraham says to Isaac, don't worry, God will provide himself a lamb. In the book of Hebrews, it says Abraham, by faith, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. By faith, he offered Isaac. No, he didn't. He was going to offer Isaac, but in God's eyes, he did offer him. Isaac didn't even have to die. Isaac was your first example of a living sacrifice. Holy, acceptable to God. Why? Because Isaac was given by faith to God. And what Paul is getting the believer to do is give their own life over by faith to God and say, you have provided for yourself. Here I am. What do you want? And so Hebrews says, and Abraham by faith offered Isaac, believing, listen to this, believing that God would raise him from the dead if he offered him. So why does Abraham walk up that mountain so confident? Isaac, Dad, we got the knife, we got the fire, we got the wood, we don't have to sacrifice. Abraham says, son, God will provide for himself a lamb. But when we hear it in Hebrews, it's as if Abraham's already offered Isaac. It's as if God has already provided himself a lamb. And Abraham is so confident that God is going to take care of it that according to Hebrews, I believe Abraham knew, if I offer Isaac on this altar, God's going to raise him from the dead. That was the way Hebrews looked at it. But I love the past tense stuff. By faith, Abraham offered Isaac. But he didn't. Yet he did. He didn't, but he did. He didn't, but he did. You're a sacrifice, but you're alive. You're a sacrifice, but you're alive. How are you both a sacrifice and alive? Faith. Your whole Christian experience is a walk of faith. It is literally, you are dead with Christ, 2 Corinthians 5. You've already given it up to Him. You don't possess yourself anymore. You don't get to make all of the decisions. Because you're going up a mountain in which you've already said, I am laying myself as a living sacrifice before God. This is already a done deal. Move through me, work through me, speak through me. Be you and I together. It's not you with a whip smacking me. It's me having laid out on the altar with Christ, and yet I'm still alive.